Hello and welcome back to Rotten Reads and Essay. This is part 6 of Evolution and the Illusion of Randomness. Could you be more explicit here? This is a stunning place to find ourselves, given the confident pronunciations we heard issuing from Dennett and Dawkins at the onset of our investigation. Not only do we have great difficulty locating meaningless chance in the context of actual life of organisms, it now turns out that the one outcome with respect to which randomness of mutation is supposed to obtain, namely the organism's fitness, cannot be given any definite or agreed upon meaning, let alone one that is testable. How then did anyone ever arrive at the conclusion that mutations are random in relation to fitness? There certainly has never been any empirical demonstration of the conclusion, and it is difficult to even to conceive the possibility of such a demonstration. What we are left to summarize then is that the doctrine of randomness has simply been projected onto the phenomenon of organic life as a matter of pre-existing philosophical commitment. In any case, it is startling to realize that the entire brief for demoting human beings and organisms in general to meaningless scraps of molecular machinery, a demotion that fuels the long-running science religion wars, and that as shocking revelation supposedly stands on a pair of Copernicus heliocentric proposals. I do know that word. Copernicus, is that it? Something like that. Anyway, he's one of those greats out there. Rests on the vague conjunction of two scarcely credible concepts, the randomness of mutations and the fitness of organisms. And strangely, this shocking revelation has been sold to us in the context of a descriptive biological literature that, from the molecular level on up, remains almost nothing but a documentation of meaningfully organized, goal-directed stories of living creatures. Here then is what the advocates of evolutionary mindlessness and meaninglessness would have us overlook. We must overlook, first of all, the fact that organisms are masterful participants and revisers of their own genomes, taking a leading position in the most intricate, subtle, and intentional genomic dance one could possibly imagine. And then we must overlook the way the organism responds intellectually and in accord with its own purpose to whatever it encounters in its environment, including the environment of its own body and including what we may prefer to view as accidents. Then, too, we are asked to ignore not only the living, reproducing creature who intensely directed lives provide the only basis we have ever known for dynamic processes of evolution, but also all the meaning of the larger environment in which these creatures participate. An environment compounded of all the infinitely complex ecological interactions that play out on significant balances, imbalances, competition, cooperation, symbiosis, and all the rest, yielding the marvelously varied and interwoven living communities we find in the savanna and rainforest, desert and meadow, stream and ocean, mountain and valley. And then finally, we must be sure to pay no heed to the fact that fitness, against which we have assumed our notion of randomness could be defined, is one of the most obscure, ill-formed concepts in all of science. Overlooking all this, we're supposed to see somewhere blind, mindless, random, purposeless automatisms at the ultimate explanatory root of all genetic variation leading to evolutionary change. The situation calls to mind a widely circulated cartoon by Sidney Harris, which shows two scientists in front of a blackboard on which a body of theory has been traced out with the usual triangle or tangle of symbols, arrows, equations, and so on. But there's a gap in the reasoning at one point, filled by the words Then a miracle occurs. And the one scientist says to the other, I think you should be more explicit here in step 2. In the case of evolution, I picture Dennett and Dawkins filling the blackboard with their vivid descriptions of living, highly regulated, coordinated, integrated, and intensely meaningful biological processes, and then inserting a small mysterious gap in the middle, along with the words, "Here's something random occurs." This something random looks every bit as wishful as the appeal to a miracle. It is the central miracle in a gospel of meaninglessness, a randomness of the gaps, demanding an extraordinarily blind faith. At the very least, we have a right to ask, could you be a little more explicit here? A faith that fills the ever shrinking gaps in our knowledge of the organism with the potential meaninglessness capable of transforming everything else into an illusion is a faith that could benefit from some minimal grounding. Otherwise, we can hardly avoid suspecting that the importance of randomness in the minds of the faithful is due to it being the only presumed scrap of a weapon in a compulsive struggle to deny all the obvious meanings of our lives. And that concludes part 6.